Hello student, welcome to massive open online course on Indian economy. Today we are going to discuss the module entitled Unemployment and its Trend in our country. After completing this module, you are able to learn different concepts related with employment and unemployment, trends of unemployment in India, as well as the trends and status of unemployment for different segments of the labor market. The module consists with 5 sections. Section 1 introduces the background of the Indian economy to address the issue of unemployment. Section 2 explores the basic concepts related to employment and unemployment. And Section 3 discusses the nature of unemployment in our country. Section 4 explores the trend of unemployment in India. And finally, Section 5 concludes some concluding observations. The removal of unemployment and underemployment has been an important objective in economic planning in India. If we consider the economic growth, that is the growth of GDP in our country, then we have experienced that there is the evidence of high growth rate in our country, and that growth rate was accelerated decades after decades. But if we consider the growth rate of employment, then it is relatively low compared to the growth rate of output. Not only that, the growth rate of employment is also lagging behind in respect of the growth rate of population as well as growth rate of the labor force. Due to relatively low growth rate of employment in comparison with growth rate of labor force, growth rate of population as well as growth rate of output, the nature of growth that experienced in our country is called the jobless growth. Jobless growth means low growth rate of employment in comparison with high growth rate of output. This peculiar nature of the growth rate or nature of the growth in our country is treated as the jobless growth. Due to jobless growth, the problem of unemployment and underemployment is the serious issue in our country. Now the basic concepts. Now we discuss the basic concepts relating to employment and unemployment in case of India. Before discussing the trends or nature of employment, we discuss some important concepts relating to the labor market in our country. Actually, National Sample Survey Organization in our country, they published or they collected the data relating to employment and unemployment in our country, and their surveys is called Employment and Unemployment Survey in India. In this survey of employment and unemployment, NSSO discussed different concepts of labor force, workforce and unemployment. They discussed the labor force by classifying the people in the group where a person is either working or seeking for work. Whereas in case of workers, workers means who are employed or who are presently engaged in any economic activity. And on the other hand, the person who are not engaged in any economic activity are treated as the unemployed. Therefore, labor force consists with workers, that is employed, and unemployed. Employed plus unemployed or worker plus unemployed equal to the total labor force in our country. And on the basis of these concepts, NSSO also defined key issues or key parameters to understand the nature of employment and unemployment in our country. And these parameters are labor force participation rate, worker population ratio and unemployment rate. Workforce participation rate is the ratio of the total worker to total population. That is, it is the percentage share of total workers in terms of total population or in respect of the total population. Whereas labor force participation rate is the ratio of the labor force to total population. It is the percentage share of total labor force in respect of total population. Labor force participation rate equal to total worker plus unemployed by total population into 100. But in case of unemployment rate, the unemployment rate is defined by the ratio of number of unemployed to total labor force, not the total population. unemployment rate equal to the number of unemployed by total labor force into 100, because unemployment is a part of the labor force. Therefore, unemployment rate is defined in respect of the labor force, not in respect of the population. NSSO also defined different activity status, and this activity status are mainly related with the reference period, and they considered three alternative reference periods. One is for the 1 year, that is 365 days prior to the survey, and 1 week, that is 7 days prior to the survey, and a daily basis on the date of the survey. Accordingly, they classified three types of unemployment: usual status unemployment, weekly status unemployment, and daily status unemployment. The usual status unemployment is also called the chronic unemployment, where a person who remained unemployed for a major part of the year. In case of current weekly status unemployment, the person who did not find any work during the period of last 7 days preceding the date of survey. Or in case of current daily status, the person who did not find work on a day for each day of the reference period. That is, on the basis of the three reference period, they classified the nature of unemployment into three categories: usual status unemployment, weekly status unemployment, and daily status unemployment. Here we will explore the two important measures, that is usual status unemployment and weekly status unemployment, and we consider these two categories to address the trends of unemployment in our country. As regards the nature of unemployment, the nature of unemployment in our country is mainly related with the structural unemployment, which is maybe open or maybe disguised. And Indian economy is predominantly the rural economy. Most of the labor force in the rural economy are engaged in the agricultural sector. Therefore, the nature of unemployment in the rural economy is different from the nature of unemployment from the urban economy. In the rural economy, we have observed the nature of unemployment, which may be classified as perennial as well as seasonal. Seasonal means the person unemployed in a particular season, because agricultural activities are only related with the monsoon in our country. Therefore, agricultural workers only employed during this monsoon season, whereas in the other parts they are not able to employ it. Therefore, these types of unemployment is called seasonal unemployment. Some workers may be unemployed around the years, and they are called perennial unemployment. Because of the specific nature of agricultural activity in our country, the unemployment may be classified as seasonal unemployment, disguised unemployment, and chronic unemployment. Seasonal unemployment as discussed earlier, but in case of disguised unemployment, it is a peculiar nature of unemployment in our country, where more workers were engaged in case of agricultural activity, but if a portion of that worker are nothing to add in the agricultural sector, or in some other way we can say that a part of the worker who are engaged in the agricultural sector, their productivity is zero. As their productivity is zero, therefore they are called the disguised unemployment. If we withdraw that labor force or that worker from the agricultural sector, then agricultural production does not hampered. Therefore, this unemployment is called disguised unemployment. As there is no alternative means of activity to employment, therefore they are forced to engage in the agricultural activities. Now we discuss the trends of unemployment in our country. Here we have considered the period of extending 1970-73 to 2019-20, that is nearly 5 decades, to explore the trends of unemployment in our country. And here we have considered 9 quinquennial surveys by NSSO from 1970-73 to 2011-12, as well as we have considered 3 periodic labor force survey or 3 latest periodic labor force survey on employment unemployment situation in our country for the year 2017, 2018 and 2019. These are the sources to explore the trend of employment and unemployment in our country. And we will also explain the distinctive features of unemployment by classifying the total population into 4 groups: rural male, rural female, urban male, and urban female. The rates of unemployment do not indicate any clear trends over the 5 decades period, that is from 1972-73 to 2019-20. However, for rural male, the unemployment rates of both usual status and current weekly status increased during 1972-73 to 1987-88 and decreased thereafter in 1993-94. After economic reforms, that is after 1991, the unemployment rate increased during 93-94 to 99-2000 in all segments of the population other than rural female or urban female. The increase in current weekly status unemployment rate was steepest for the rural males and rural females. Unemployment rate were significantly increased in the year 2017-18 for all segments of the population. This is the information that help us to explore the trends of unemployment in our country. Here, if we consider the recent trends of unemployment, that is after 2017-18, then the unemployment was declined in all segments of the population. In case of rural males, for usual status, unemployment rate was declined from 5.8% to 4.5%. In case of rural female, the usual status unemployment also declined from 3.8% to 2.6%. In case of urban female, it was decreased from 7.1% to 6.4%. And finally, in case of urban female, it was also decreased from 10.8% to 8.9%. There was also the evidence of declining of the unemployment rate in current weekly status in all segments of the population after 2017 and 18. The important features that we have observed in the trend of unemployment in India are summarized in this way. Here, the unemployment rate of usual status is generally higher than that of the current weekly status for different segment of the population, and the gap between the unemployment rate of usual status and unemployment rate in current weekly status also increased over time. The unemployment rate in urban areas is also higher than that of the rural areas, and it was the highest for current weekly status of urban female. In urban areas, the unemployment rate for females were higher than those for males, while in the rural areas, the unemployment rate for males were higher than the females. That is contrasting feature we have observed in case of trend of unemployment in rural and urban areas. Now we discuss the unemployment rate among the educated. NSSO considered the specific age group above 15 years to address the educated unemployment, and they considered the education level secondary and above to discuss the educated unemployment. And the basic features or important features of the unemployment or educated unemployment in our country are related with the nature of unemployment. That is, here the unemployment rate is relatively high as for the higher educated person. Not only that, in both rural and urban areas, among the educated, the unemployment rate was much higher for the female than that of the males. Here we have considered the unemployment rate, the trend of unemployment rate for the period 2004-5 to 2019-20 as the observations or information are available in the NSSO Employment Unemployment Survey. And here we have also able to discuss on the basis of this information, we are able to discuss the trend of unemployment for rural male, rural female, urban male and urban female. And for all the segment of the population, the age group of the worker is above the 15 years. If you consider the educated unemployment as considered by the NSSO, then this particular education level, secondary and above, are treated as the educated unemployment, as it is considered by the National Sample Survey Organization. In case of educated unemployment for the rural male, it was decreased from 4.4% in 2004-05 to 3.6% in 2011-12, and thereafter it increased to 10.5% in 2017-18. In case of rural female, the educated unemployment decreased from 15.2% in 2004-05 to 9.7% in 2011-12. Thereafter, it increased to 17.3% in 2017-18. Whereas, in case of urban female, it decreased from 4.2% in 2004-05 to 2.2% in 2011-12. Thereafter, it also increased to 6% in 2017-18. But in case of urban female, the unemployment rate was quite high, but it also decreased from 15.6% to 10.3% in 2011-12. After that, it also increased to 19.8%. But during the recent years, that is after 2017-18, unemployment rate or educated unemployment rate was decreased in all segments of the population. That is, educated unemployment decreased for rural male, rural female, urban male, and urban females. As regards educated unemployment, we have noticed that the unemployment rate was quite high for the higher educated person. The figure consisting with the line diagram help us to understand the relationship between unemployment rate and the level of education. In the horizontal axis, we have measured different level of education starting from not literate, then up to primary, middle, secondary, higher secondary, graduate, and postgraduate. And in the vertical axis, we have measured the unemployment rate in percentage term. Okay, these two lines indicates the relationship between education level and unemployment rate, one for the rural India and another for the urban India. The blue line indicates the relationship between education level and unemployment for the rural India, whereas the red line indicates the relationship for the urban India. And this is the information for the year 2011-12. From the trend of the line, both rural and urban India, it is clear that there was no evidence of declining of the unemployment rate for the higher educated person. Both the curve were upward rising, which indicates that unemployment rate is relatively high for the higher level of education. But in the earlier studies, the researcher observed that the shape of this curve may be inverted U shape, and the peaked level may be at the middle or secondary level of education. But in India, there was no evidence of the inverted U shape unemployment curve. Rather, the unemployment curve is gradually upward rising. That is the serious problem in our country. The educated person or the higher educated person are facing serious problem in respect of the employment. Now we discuss the unemployment rates for the youth in our country. And here NSSO considered the specific age group 15 to 29 years to define the youth unemployment rate. And this youth unemployment rate is quite high compared to other segment of the population. That is, in our country, we have experienced high youth unemployment rate compared to other segment of the population. And this particular table help us to analyze the trends of unemployment rate of the youth in our country for the period of 2004-05 to 2011-12. On the basis of this information, we are able to discuss the trends of unemployment for four specific group of the youth, that is for rural male, rural female, urban male, and urban female. In case of rural male, youth unemployment rate ranged from 3.9% to 5% during 2004-5 to 11-12. After that, it increased to 17.4%. In case of rural female, it ranged from 4.2% to 4.8%, and it also increased to 13.6% in 2017-18. If you consider urban male youth unemployment rate, then this unemployment rate is relatively higher compared to the youth rural male and youth rural female unemployment rates. That is, urban male youth unemployment rates is relatively higher compared to the rural male youth unemployment rate and rural female youth unemployment rate. The rural male youth unemployment rate ranged from 8.8% in 2004-5 to 8.1% in 2011-12. After that, it increased to 18.7% in 2017-18. If we consider urban female youth unemployment rate, then from this information, it is clear that the urban female youth unemployment rate was the highest compared to other segments of the population. That is, urban female unemployment rate was highest in comparison with rural male, rural female, and urban male youth unemployment rate. And this urban female youth unemployment rate ranged from 14.9% in 2004-5 to 13.1% in 2011-12. After that, it increased to 27.2%, very high rate of unemployment we have experienced in the year 2017-18 for urban female youth unemployment rate. And this unemployment rate is the serious concern in our country. And after 2017-18, the youth unemployment rate marginally declined in the year 2018-19 and in the year 2019 and 20. Now we discuss the monthly unemployment rate in India. Along with the National Sample Survey Organization, Center for Monitoring Indian Economy, they have also published the employment and unemployment statistics in our country. And they have also published different concepts of the unemployment rate, from where we have considered the monthly unemployment rates for the period of January 2016 to the July 2022. And this particular line diagram shows the trend of unemployment rate or monthly unemployment rate for the period of January 2016 to July 2022, following the information of Center for Monitoring of Indian Economy. And here we have noticed that the monthly unemployment rate as estimated by the CMIE is mainly ranged in between 5% to 10%. But if you consider the particular year 2020, then the unemployment rate was quite high, and it was 23.5% in May 2020. We are all aware that the May 2020 is the period of the COVID lockdown period. Due to the lockdown, most of the workers are unemployed during this period. Therefore, the unemployment rate was relatively high during the 2020. After that, the unemployment rate gradually declined, and during the recent years, unemployment rate also lies in the normal range, 5 to 10%. Now we discuss other concept of the unemployment, that is seasonal unemployment, which is very prominent features of the Indian economy, because 2/3 of the Indian workforce are living in the rural region, and they are mainly depends on the agricultural activity, and the specific features of agricultural activity is the seasonal activity. Therefore, seasonal unemployment is the specific features of unemployment in our country. In the year 2011-12, the gross irrigated area as a percentage of gross cropped area was only 46.9%. This gross irrigated area in respect of the gross crop area is an indicator of the multiple cropping pattern And this multiple cropping pattern is also related with the employment around the years. But only 46.9% land in our country are irrigated, where there is the scope for employment around the years. But if you consider the farmers who are cultivating approximately 72% of the land, remaining involuntary unemployment for 3 to 4 months in the year, unless they find some temporary employment in this period. The agriculture sector also experienced very low level of employment elasticity of output. Employment elasticity of output is the ratio of the growth rate of agricultural employment to the growth rate of output. And during the periods of 1972-73 to 1983, it was only 0.46%. After that, during the latter period, that is after economic reform period, 93-94 to 2004-5, this employment elasticity of in agriculture sector also declined to 0.26%. But after 2004-5, this employment elasticity of in agriculture was negative. That is, during the period 2004-5 to 11-12, the employment elasticity of agriculture is negative, which indicates that the growth rate of employment was negative during 2004-5 to 11-12. That is, during this particular period 2004-5 to 11-12, the growth rate of agricultural employment was negative. As a result, we have observed the negative employment elasticity of agricultural output. This is the serious concern, because agriculture sector not able to generate additional employment in our country. Along with the seasonal employment, disguised unemployment is also a serious issue, which is also related with the agricultural sector, as we have discussed earlier. And in a particular report, Ajit Kumar Ghosh, the report is treated as the India Employment Report 2016, made an attempt to estimate the surplus labor of the economy, not only for agriculture sector, rather for overall the economy. And this report presents estimates of the surplus labor for a country as a whole. According to this report, the currently surplus workers were 52 million, which was 8% of the non-student working age population, and total surplus workers were 104 million, which is 15% of the non-student working age population. This shows the incidence of surplus labor in India's economy is quite large. Now we come to the conclusion. After discussing the trends of unemployment in our country, we have experienced that unemployment rate is quite high for the rural youth as well as for the urban youth. The unemployment rate is also quite high for the educated person. That is our serious concern in our country. And in most of the countries, not only in our country like India, unemployment rate is the lead indicator to understand the health of the economic condition. And here we noticed that Indian economy was experienced very high unemployment rate, and this unemployment rate was fluctuated from year to year, but there was no sign to overcome the problem of unemployment in India. The basic problem is that in our economy the growth rate is very high, and this high growth rate of Indian economy has been experienced due to the technical oriented production system. Due to the implementation of sophisticated production technology, growth rate was relatively high, but the sophisticated production technology not able to generate employment at a greater extent to overcome the problem of unemployment in our country. Therefore, we have experienced the nature of growth which is called jobless growth, or for a particular period in our country, that is for the period 2004-5 to 11-12, the growth rate, the nature of growth rate was job loss. Not only jobless, Indian economy also experienced job loss growth rate. Therefore, to overcome this problem of unemployment, our objective must be to productive and remunerative employment. Otherwise, we are not able to overcome the problem of unemployment in our country.